Utilities, and Councilmember Green, help me. Is it only been community services?
Yeah, little Parks is involved in that, yeah.
But it wasn't named Parks.
Yep, no, and it's just Community Services Committee.
Okay.
Yep.
So the proposal is to merge, leave admin, finance, public safety alone. Development services would merge transportation utilities with planning and building. Obviously, that has all been done inside the city structure. And then adding parks with community services. Currently, I'm the chair of admin, finance, and public safety. Councilmember Burbank is part of that. Councilmember Rose was part of that, and she's no longer on the council. Development and transportation would be the chair is Councilmember Arsano, myself, and outgoing Councilmember Tremblay. So that would need a third. Parks and Community Services, chaired by Councilmember Green. And I believe Councilmember Rose was on that, and who else?
Anderson.
Okay, well, she's still in the fold. So. Mayor, I don't know. Are you wanting to appoint, or are you, or?
We need to get on with it, but we don't have to do it tonight.
Well, I'd like to do it tonight and adopt it on next week, so we got business we have to take care of. I believe I'm well suited to continue on admin, finance, and public safety due to my background, and I've been on this committee for the previous 2 years and going into this year. I believe that Councilmember Arsano is well suited to be on transportation and development services based on his professional background. I mean, he's got an eye and a speaking point to these items. We have 2 new council members, Councilmember Burgess and Councilmember Bender. If I remember right, Councilmember Bender had been on community services before. Were you on anything else? Councilmember Green chairs that, and I think he's well suited based on his PCRC and things to continue that. So we need to form the committees since we have 2 new council members. I know that admin, finance, and public safety meets in the afternoon, as does what we're going to call development services, transportation meets in the afternoon. When did your?
Was it 4:30?
Yes, it was 4:30.
Everything meets in the afternoon.
Yep.
I know your schedule. I know your situation. You're retired. I'm off at 2:30, 2:45. City staff is still here. So I would entertain discussion around this, and I'd like to make quick work of it and figure out how we're going to form these committees for this next 2 years. Anybody?
Well, first off, does anybody have any issue with the chairs as Ron's laid them out for the 3 committees?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's that, and then we'll add
So-
to it.
So I'm going to ask then, Councilmember Bergeson, do you have a preference on what committee you serve on?
Well, considering I was in finance for many, many years, it would probably make sense for me to be on the admin, finance, public safety committee.
I agree. I agree with that. Councilmember Bender.
I really don't. Cause I mean, I was on the last one with community services. And, but this is kind of cool. It's also with the parks. But either one that's left, I flip a coin.
Well, one of the issues we have is in past years, myself and council member Rose were on two committees.
Right.
I have no problem being on two, remaining on transportation and developmental services, as well as admin and finance, but we're gonna need another person on developmental services and transportation to fill it out.
How many are supposed to be on there? Is it just one, two,
Three.
three on each one?
So on development services and transportation, there's nobody on there right now. I thought.
Me,
Myself and council member Orsano currently.
Yeah, I mean, either the development or the parks, whichever.
For both.
Well, somebody's gonna have to serve on two committees.
I can do both.
You can do both?
I can do
You're
both.
comfortable doing both? Because the meeting spot for that is at Public Works on River,
Okay.
the office there,
Tuesday at 4.
4 o'clock in the afternoon. So what I'm hearing is everybody's good with the current committees and the chairs that are on them. That Councilmember Burgess is going to be on admin and finance to round out Councilmember Burbank and myself. And Councilmember Bender is going to be on Parks and Community Services and on Development Services and Transportation with myself and Councilmember Orsano. There we go.
And Mackenzie.
She's on
Oh,
Parks and
something.
Community.
Services.
She's on Parks. and
She's the other one
Community.
on Parks.
Yes.
She's the best.
Okay, that's right. I'm sorry. She's not sitting here. I'm not seeing her, so it's not clicking. You have something?
I was just gonna say, and I can help you if you can't make a meeting, then I can help you fill in if something. Taking on double.
Look at that. 8 minutes. We filled out our,
It's a 2-pager.
oh, yes,
the
we're
back.
not done yet.
The other part of this conversation was regarding meeting frequency. Oftentimes, these committee meetings are held once every other month or quarterly, just because a lot of them end up getting canceled. And so the idea was to restructure them to meet every other month or quarterly. And in the off months, council would have a liaison appointment as well that they would attend. So that would be our community or our community service groups, which is our planning commission, seniors advisory commission, citizen advisory commission. The other, BDA and chamber have reached out to the city to request the possibility of council liaisons. They've done that at council meetings as well as to me via email. And then the last is the one that we do currently have a liaison to, which is the PCRC or the regional groups. So this was just the second part of that conversation. If we wanted to restructure and create more of a liaison, specifically for the planning commission, I've seen it work really well, be very helpful by the time we receive recommendations from the planning commission pertaining to example for the comp plan amendments. A council member is able to speak to them a little bit more than what just a resolution from the planning commission might be able to speak to in order to shed light on what led them to make a decision one way or another. So I've seen it work well. I don't know if we've ever done that necessarily in the city of Buckley, but this would just be the initial starting point for that if you're interested.
So we need some volunteers to be a council liaison to these items. Councilmember Orsano.
I don't mind doing the planning commission and economic development.
I need to look at my calendar.
You're gonna sign up for both?
Don't matter, yeah, because it's just one Monday a month for the one and then. Yeah, I don't mind both.
Okay.
Isn't there gonna be a couple of us on
Yeah,
there?
it'd be great to have an alternate. So have a primary and then an alternate. Just
We have a excellent point. Primary, is there an alternate for planning commission and economic development?
Are you asking for an alternate for both or just for one or the other right now?
Well, we can take one or the other. I will volunteer to be the alternate for economic development.
So that includes, because that includes the BDA and the chamber. Because right now, the only ones that I could do would be the chamber, because Mondays I have, like, I have union and.
And this is a new program. And
Okay.
so I think
So like the Wednesdays, I'm like, okay, Wednesdays I don't have.
Yeah, and it'll be a big disclaimer, right, to these
Okay,
groups that
okay.
it's when we can, same thing with the planning commission, it's when you're
Okay.
available and you can make
Okay.
it great. If you can't, we'll have somebody else that can attend or
Okay.
just let them know. It's not gonna.
Because I could do
It's new.
the chamber and I could also do PCRC. Those are the only days that I don't have because that's late
Yeah.
on PCRC. It should be an
Yeah.
alternate or something.
Yeah, no, good call. PCRC is good time. Go for it.
So we're getting that down that,
Yeah, I've got it.
okay,
Okay.
Councilmember Burbank's gonna be an alternate on those.
Yep.
Senior Advisory
I
Commission,
can't do that.
actually, that is an outstanding opportunity. These people are the salt of the earth.
I would like that one.
They paved the way. Well, there you go.
I'm already on 3, so. Let her take one.
Councilmember Burgess will be the point person on Senior Advisory Commission. I would be glad to be the alternate on that as well. Councilmember Arsano.
Are these ones where like, me and you can't attend both at the same time?
You can have two. We just
Up to
would,
two?
yeah, up to three. You could even have three. You just can't have four. You
Got it.
can't have enough to have a quorum.
Yeah. We can't be
At
in the
any
same
meeting.
place at the same time.
So Brandon and I could both be on the,
Absolutely.
okay, okay, okay.
Mhm. So that leaves Citizens Advisory Commission, who I had spoken to Anderson, and she was interested in that. Otherwise.
I can be the alternate for that one.
Okay, so we got Anderson as point person and Green as alternate.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that was 13 minutes and we
Great.
kicked out some work.
How would we know where they're meeting or like the PCRC, like the Zoom, how,
So there's like a meeting invite that goes
Yeah.
out.
Well,
yeah.
get
I'll add you to their register
There you
and then
go.
they will send you the email.
okay. And then for the chamber, we
Same
would
thing.
just,
I'll
got
notify
it.
him
Okay,
after
check.
next week. So these appointments, assuming that everything goes forward, will be made by the mayor next week. Recommendations will be made by the mayor, appointed by the council or confirmed by the council. And then I'll send out notifications the
Okay.
following day to all the groups.
Okay.
Perfect.
Do we have a second for planning commission or did I miss?
No, I do not. So I have, okay, Planning Commission, I have Arsano, Senior Advisory Commission, I have Bender Burbank, or sorry, Bender, Bergerson,
No, it's Denise.
Okay.
It's on senior.
Bergerson and Smith.
Yep.
So Citizens, I have Anderson Green, Economic Development, Arsano Smith, Regional, Burbank Green, LTAC is already Bergerson. So that leaves, we need a second for Planning Commission.
Well, you need 2 for the senior advisory commission, and 2 for the planning, correct?
The two for senior is Smith and Bergerson.
So we need a second for citizens
Second for
or
planning.
planning. I will volunteer to be second for planning.
We hit them all. We added LTAC at the end there. It's not on the list, but.
Yeah.
And we.
LTAC's
and
already
you're-
been appointed.
Both you guys are on that, right?
No,
Just-
Oh, just one.
Just
Okay,
Bergerson is on. She's the chair.
okay.
Anything else on that item? We're all satisfied?
Yes.
And it's subject to change. It's not in
Yep.
concrete. We can,
Yeah, we can adjust it along the way.
Trying it out.
Okay, next item. Chief Scogan.
Right, so in your packets for tonight was a very brief summary and a highlight. End of year and a little bit about where we're at today as far as response times and the fire department. 2023 was without a doubt our busiest year on record. And I now have a handout that will be coming around that just shows the last 4 years total of call volume and how much that we have increased. So this only goes back to 2020, the year 2020, when I became the chief. We were at 1,345 calls that year compared to 1,530 in 2024. So I have a handful of things to go over tonight, but just wanted to see if council or mayor had any questions regarding the packet that went out.
Thanks for the information.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Thanks for your patience while we're still into this new reporting system, ESO, and figuring out how to get the data that we want. So by next quarter, we should have that mastered. But as far as call volume, that's a pretty easy piece of data that we get from our dispatch center.
Mhm.
I would say that it's this speaks volumes based on population growth, based on some of the things we see around opioids and other airborne illnesses that have been around. I mean, this is not surprising that it's increased this much.
Yeah. And I think everybody is fully aware that our neighbors have a big impact on that, as do we on what they do. We're fortunate to have a system in Pierce County where we all do rely on each other. So the busier our neighbors are, just means the busier that we are. Very, very much so. So, like I said, I have quite a few just quick updates to share with you. Not all this came out in your packet. But what's also coming around now is a quick update on ALS ambulance service. As soon as everybody has that, I'm just going to hit some of the highlights just to keep everybody informed and let you know that things are happening in the background, but there's no change in the service today. So on January 24th, AMR management reached out to me to let us know that they were going to be making changes to the subsidy. So if we remember back to November of 2023, essentially they told us they were going to double it from 85,000 to 162. AMR indicated that it was an accounting error on their part and that it would only be 115,000 moving forward, not 162. So they indicated that they wish to remain working under the current agreement and have sent over an updated pro forma that represents the $30,000 increase. So at some point in the near future, I would expect to be bringing that agreement forward. And it is my recommendation that we approve that under the terms of a 12-month agreement until such time that we can evaluate all of our additional options and opportunities that we fully anticipate and expect to bring forward for your consideration. We have a service in place today. There's absolutely no way I would want to interrupt or change that until we have a solid plan to move forward. So that's an update there. Because we have such a large service area that takes in Crystal Mountain Resort, Federal Forest Service land, Mount Rainier National Park, 2 other towns and 2 other fire districts. They're all aware. They, along with Crystal Mountain Resort, wish to continue to collaborate and find options to sustain paramedic ambulance service for all of us. Councilmember Dave Morrell has now been briefed and he's invited to our next stakeholder meeting up in Greenwater on February 28th. And the reason we chose to include him is he has been our go-to point of contact for PILT funds that we've been receiving. And the PILT funds are funds that the county receives from the state and from the feds for local governments that provide service to federal lands. When you look at our ambulance service area, it takes in a good chunk of national park. It takes in Forest Service land and everything that is Crystal Mountain Resort. The ground is owned by the Forest Service. The Forest Service leases the ground to the resort. So we're providing a service to a large area of federal property, and we're going to request that Councilmember Morrell lobby to secure additional PILT funds, especially if we begin to explore options to stand up our own fire-based paramedic service. So much more to meet after our meeting on the 28th. As another option, we were approached by another private ambulance company, Olympic Ambulance. Last Monday, they're one of the other few providers that are licensed to operate in Pierce County. I commend them for presenting several out-of-the-box ideas. And I'm fully expecting to receive 5 different proposals from them in the very near future, as soon as they submit them. And it's everything from just providing a fully staffed ambulance to this area to collaborating with the Buckley Fire Department to operate the way we do with AMR, to some other very creative ideas and ways that they can provide a paramedic to us with the city-owned fire department ambulance doing the work and capturing the transport revenue. So they shared with all of you, every single option is a good option to bring forward. And I'm not here to tell you which one's going to be best until we actually have all those. So more to come there. Yesterday, 3 chief officers from East Pierce, myself, and Chief Sowers representing Greenwater and Crystal met with a representative from Crystal Mountain Resort. And basically East Pierce has announced their intentions to cease providing service to Crystal Mountain Resort in the next 90 days. So basically the end of this ski season. Obviously that is going to be pivotal in the direction that we go. Because 4 times in the month of January, East Pierce has been dispatched to Crystal Mountain Resort. So that's 4 times that our fire department medic unit was already on another call. So much more to come. The only thing I can share is the resort, in summary, at the end of the very short meeting said, we understand that fire departments are taxed, but the medic units in East Pierce County are overloaded. And they said, it's our desire to work with all of you to collaborate to provide service. So for right now, that's all I have to report on. Hopefully that's a good indicator of what could be to come. So any questions on where we're at? There's many moving parts and pieces, and while it seems like we're not doing anything, there is yearly, weekly, something going on. Yes,
For the Olympic ambulance, did they proactively seek us out, or do we go after
they
them?
sought us out. Yep. As anybody that's in public safety knows, it's an awfully small world that we live in. And Pierce County is a very small county. So I have a feeling that they were aware of the current situation and they sought us out.
Do you know how many so East Pierce is not going to be servicing Crystal Mountain. So how many fire departments do service Crystal Mountain? Is it just Buckley? Like
So the
Enumclaw
way,
sorry.
so Enumclaw does not.
Oh, have they ever?
No.
No, okay.
No.
County versus Pierce County.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the kind of the confusing part is those county lines. Once you get to Greenwater proper, you're back in Pierce County.
Oh, right.
And the way our
okay,
EMS
okay.
systems are set up kind of prevents that.
Okay,
The way it works today, if there was a 911 call at Crystal Mountain Resort, it's based on the closest fire department medic unit. So it's going to go to Buckley first. If we're not available, it's going to go to the closest East Pierce unit. And then the next East Pierce until they run out of units. And then it winds up down at Ording Valley. But they're now a part of Central Pierce Fire and Rescue contractually. Central Pierce Fire and Rescue probably is not aware of this situation. And I can't speak for them, but I'm going to guess that they're not interested in sending a unit to Crystal Mountain.
got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Who was the rep who was the rep that was representing Crystal Mountain?
Peter Dale, Director of Mountain Operations.
Any other questions or comments on this staff report?
One other question. So it says that East Pierce is ceasing Crystal Mountain service because of, lack of unit reliability based on increased call volume. Do you know if their call volume is increasing like proportionately to ours? Is it kind of?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, very much so. And while we rely on them for mutual aid as well, it's still roughly 8-to-1 of us going there versus them coming here. It's increased a little bit for the city of Buckley, primarily because we don't have a paramedic that lives in our station anymore. And one of our paramedics that lived locally now lives in Alaska. So.
Anything else?
Do they have a summer, I mean, I know people hike there, do they have a summertime call volume too?
It's
probably
very
less.
minimal. So one of the other, it's almost the trade-off for our department is during a typical ski season, this one hasn't been great. So we haven't been there a ton, but we're still there often. We go to Crystal Mountain 3 to 5 times a week. In the summertime, it transitions when the White River entrance to Mount Rainier Park opens. We go there, but if I were to give you a good estimate, it would be 3 times a month.
So is it something like an interlocal agreement, like we have with Carbonado Wilson that you could enter into? Where they pay X amount for like to staff one new firefighter or something?
It's definitely on the table, you bet.
Cause we'd want to hoard that versus giving away, right?
Anything else on this memo? Moving on.
All right, so handful of other things here. I'm gonna walk myself through my own presentation. So bear with me. And I know that Councilmember Bender's not completely new to this, and there's a fair amount about our department and the way it's staffed. Councilmember Bergerson, I think has a fairly good idea. But I'm just gonna kind of walk you through where things are at today and how we got here. So we're still very proud to be a Washington Survey and Rating Bureau Class 3 department. Class 1, the absolute best, Class 10, nothing. So we're very proud of that. We are a combination department. Today, we have 52 volunteer firefighters. We have 16 recruits that are volunteers going through the academy. Their training will conclude in June, and then they will be sent to EMT school. We have 2 full-time chief officers, 1 full-time firefighter, and a full-time recruitment and retention coordinator that's grant funded. We're on our 2nd consecutive successful grant to fund that position. And he also can function as a firefighter EMT. That's not his primary role. So in 2019, the last City of Buckley comprehensive plan, there was an element that included fire protection. And at that time, fire department identified our level of service with a response time of 9 minutes or less. 1 year ago, in January 2023, response time in the City of Buckley, so I cannot fairly count Crystal Mountain calls or even Wilkinson, I look at City of Buckley, was 5 minutes, 41 seconds. And as you've heard for many years and many meetings, we're knocking it out of the park. We're doing a great job. In January of 2024, our response time has risen in the city to 9 minutes, 5 seconds. That changes every day because every day we're responding anywhere from 2 to 5, 6 calls a day. But as of yesterday, it was 9 minutes, 5 seconds. For the first time, we've exceeded what we've said our acceptable level of service is. So how did we get here? No secret, we have a high amount of turnover in our volunteer ranks. We're very proud to say that we have well over 200 people that have moved on to career fire or EMS positions in other departments. As I was talking to the recruitment retention coordinator over the weekend, it's probably closer to 250 now. We have no shortage of people that want to volunteer for us. We continually have more applicants than we have vacancies for. But we can't keep pace with the turnover. I shared it takes a full year to get somebody fully qualified as a firefighter and an EMT to kick them loose and provide service with just a partner. 3 of the people that we lost in the last 6 months were live-in residents, and they all received full-time positions somewhere else. As I shared with you also, rising call volume, slightly less personnel, and high turnover. One of the things that's always a challenge in a volunteer combination department where we can't guarantee that there's somebody at the fire station, especially with a decrease in live-ins, is we've seen more gaps in coverage. So what I mean there is There's nobody in the fire station other than the lone paramedic. Our gaps in coverage have gotten excessive in the last 3 months, especially. You can pretty much, at least Chief Olson and I can set our clock between 4 a.m. and about 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. There's a good chance there's nobody at the fire station. Our overnight volunteers that do a tremendous job providing staffing nearly every single night, 365 days out of the year. Most of them leave somewhere between 4 and 6 a.m. to go to another job or to go to school. Paid day staff doesn't come on till 8, occasionally 7, but those gaps occur every day. Our weekend days, sometimes challenges, and then our major holidays. Our volunteers all are required to fulfill minimum requirements as far as the number of shifts and the number of hours. But not being their full-time employer, we can't mandate when they have to be there. So you can take a guess that nobody wants to be there on Christmas Day or Thanksgiving Day. So just a quick snapshot looking at our internal calendar this week. Today and tomorrow are 2 days out of the week where somebody is on for a full 24 hours. There's no gaps. When I look at all the gaps in coverage for a total of 39 hours out of this week that we're in, there's nobody in our fire station. So in that comprehensive plan from 2019, that was submitted to the city. Now this is a benchmark and it was a target that we were trying to achieve, that was submitted by Chief Predmore at the time. Now they estimated the population of the city of Buckley to be 6556. I know we're not there, but they did estimate that we would have 6 full-time staff, not counting our recruitment and retention coordinator, and 2 part-time staff. So something that we have just forgotten about, and I don't think it was on anyone's radar to try to meet that benchmark or that target. So while I'm asking for a lot tonight, I can tell you what a total of 3 full-time firefighter EMTs would do. It would guarantee a basic level of service to the city, 24/7, 365, because they could easily be paired up with 3 existing medics. Doesn't matter if those medics are from AMR, Olympic Ambulance, or down the road if they're Buckley Fire Department medics. Bottom line is there's always a paramedic there. It could reduce the demand and the strain placed on our volunteers that are performing ambulance transports. And while I think, as I shared in the past, well, 5 calls a day doesn't sound like a ton. You know, most people think firefighters are just going to sit around and play cards. But when each one of those is an ambulance transport, it's 2 hours minimum. Some could be 3. It's a big ask. It could increase reliability for engine company staffing. Obviously, if there's only a paid firefighter EMT and a paid paramedic on duty, they're on the medic unit. And free up seats on a fire engine for our dedicated volunteers, because it's only 10% of what we do, but it's equally as important when any of our houses are on fire. 3 full-time firefighter EMTs would reduce the likelihood of the chiefs performing ambulance transports, because more often than not, Monday through Friday, if it's between 4 and 8 a.m., that's who's on your medic unit. Another benefit, it would give us just continuity in our internal operations. So the biggest part here, why I feel like I have some explaining to do, we're 2 months into the new year. Why now and not at budget request time? Since then, we received our turn down letter from FEMA that we submitted to hire 4 personnel. Our volunteer numbers are actually decreasing. And even though our recruitment is successful, again, we can't keep up the turnover versus the amount of time it takes to onboard and get somebody fully qualified. Our response time average is increasing and it is exceeding our adopted level of service. When the fire station staffed, Our response time in the city is easily 6 minutes or less, which we're very happy with. For those 2, 3, 4, and 5 calls a week that are happening when there's no one there, response time is 8 to 15 minutes. And that's sorely affecting our average. So the funding part. We thank you for your support and approval for one full-time firefighter. I'm sorry that I'm asking for another, but we wouldn't be here. This is an absolute necessity right now. I know that the city's reserve fund is for emergency use. There's a handful of our personnel here tonight. They're all here to tell you that they feel this is an emergency. As do I. So we're asking to access a portion of that, and between Administrator Brunel and I we'll get there here shortly on how we think this will work, but just some of the good that we're doing and trying to contribute and trying to, as a department, pull our fair share, because we understand we're not the only department in the city. Our GEMT Medicaid supplements that we're getting in 2024 is 122,000, arriving mid-year. We're proposing, with your support, to run an EMS levy lid lift on the August ballot. And we are highly interested in now exploring impact fees to new construction in the city and what that can do. And the benefit to that is right now, we're to impose impact fees in the future on new construction that can take the place of our current capital reserve fund, which is what we buy fire engines and ambulances, turnouts and air packs, all those wonderful things. Right now there's around 500,000 in that fund. If we were to have a successful impact fee structure in place, that's where I'd propose that we replaced large capital items from. That current capital reserve comes from our Rainier School protection contract. So I know that's a lot to throw at you. What we're passing around is an example of the city of Auburn's fire impact fees. Which we feel is a good starting point that's especially somewhat local. I really like the fact that they've addressed all new construction from single family to multifamily, and then our commercial. Single family and multifamily. They've arrived at a formula, which we haven't even begun yet, but it's some ideas as far as basically just flat fees. And we all know that as any jurisdiction grows, that it's going to just result in a higher demand of city services, period. It's more streets to sweep. It's more meters to read. It's a higher likelihood for fire, EMS, and law enforcement. So we feel that this may be an option to explore and begin going down the road of full implementation in the next 3 months or less to help offset some of the expenses.
Thank you, Chief, for that. I, for one, am fully aware of the level of service that Buckley residents are used to for a very, very long time from Buckley Fire. I often make fun of firefighters because my retired profession was the other side, and we do that. But this is glaring. And I've mentioned before some of the things that they do. Instead of cat in a tree, it is somebody out of the bathtub that can't get out. We have all this growth, which is more people, means more calls. 410 is looking like Meridian anymore. They have to respond to things on 410. If you look at Pulse Point, everybody should have Pulse Point on their phone because you see the work that they're doing. It is not acceptable to have a 9-minute to 15-minute response time. It's not their fault. It's not their fault at all. It's not Buckley Fire's fault that their volunteers, remember that word, volunteer, went and got a full-time job in the service, professional job. Yes, they're getting new recruits in, and like any other profession, they have to get their training before they can be put into service. But having this gap in coverage, I thank you for that comprehensive presentation. I think it's a no-brainer, and I would ask my colleagues to ask questions, comment, whatever you need to do on this. Because this is huge. This is like life and death.
It's a huge leap for our department. I'll be completely honest.
Councilmember Burgess.
So my son was a volunteer firefighter for Enumclaw. And so, you'd hear a little scuttlebutt. It's my understanding that if you have 3 full-time firefighters, they can unionize. And I understand that there's some tension between full-time and volunteers. So how do we fix that? Because I don't want us to lose volunteers. But I do think that we need to make sure that our fire station is staffed to help our citizens. So how do we fix that problem?
So I'm very well aware. It's a careful balancing act. So right now we're a combination department. There's a couple of paid people and there's a whole bunch of volunteers that make it happen. There's nothing that will prevent us from having volunteer firefighters other than maintaining good, positive labor management relations, that we make sure we select the right people, and those people that might fill those positions that could become union need to understand that this will never be a fully career fire department. There's no way even in 100 years that this city's gonna afford 20 career firefighters on shift every day.
Will we end up losing those full-time people then will they prefer to go to another fire station that is career?
Losing any paid people that we have to bigger paid departments?
Correct. If they know that they're going to need to work with volunteers.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I really don't. I think as a volunteer department, as a combination department, as a paid department, we will always be a stepping stone for some people. There's no hiding that. There's no hiding the fact that all you have to do is go across the bridge or the other side of Mundy Loss, and those departments are going to pay much higher than we will. But I think we have something much more to offer. As long as I've belonged to this department, we've had the majority of our paid staff or chiefs that have lived in the city. It's a benefit. We all like to serve and like to work where we live.
Right.
I would certainly hope we could continue that. There's a handful of volunteer firefighters here behind me. I told them this isn't a night for public comment or testimony, but this is a shared vision of the department.
So, I mean, we could be looking at in another year or two, perhaps having another full-time on top of what you're asking for now.
Perhaps.
Okay.
Yep.
I like the 5 and 6 minute response time much better than
Me
the
too.
9 to 15. So,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
Councilmember Green.
I think you all know what I'm gonna say. Like the Chiefs have done everything that they possibly can at this time. They have done a tremendous job, as is their staff. Really, the onus is on us to enable them to do more to get the response times where they need to be. You heard it from him earlier. All our neighbors are seeing the same, call volume escalating. It's not just in Buckley. It's not going anywhere. It's going to get, more and more and more. One thing Chief didn't say is that when we get those 5 calls a day, it doesn't sound like a lot. Well, a lot of times those calls are happening at the same time. And so you need that coverage. The onus is really on us at this point to give them the tools they need. So, it's a slam dunk. I don't see how we couldn't give them that extra position. And then, to your point, there could be some, push pull between career and volunteer, but I'm confident that we'll be able to overcome that.
I like that.
Just, I can't make you any promises. Chief Olson and I both started as volunteers with this department. It's very near and dear to our heart. And volunteering and volunteerism is, at least for me, my background, the whole time that I was a volunteer here, I was a career firefighter elsewhere in Pierce County. Part of that time was spent being on the labor side of the negotiating table for a small period of time. And in my final year there, before I came home to work full-time, I got to be on the management side of that table. And so I do have the unique experience of seeing both sides, and how they need to work together.
Councilmember Asano, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, what would be like a total ideal number of paid firefighters that we have? If you're talking a 20-year plan, a 10-year plan to implement something, starting now to implement a plan, okay, well, in 2 years, we need to push for this.
Sure.
2 years, we need to push for this.
This, by having a paid firefighter paired up with a paramedic of some fashion, it will be a huge, immediate, tremendous impact. However, as the city grows, I foresee that in 4 years, we'll need to start talking about staffing a fire engine up. So that's a minimum of 2 more people times 3 shifts. So a staff fire engine, 2 people every day minimum. A staff paramedic unit with 2 people every day. So we're at a total of 12.
And that would be like.
That'd be in my
Right.
5 to 10 year plan to be fully implemented.
I mean, I would like to see the fire department stay in Buckley and not go to a bigger agency. I'd definitely like to keep it in-house.
I would like that too.
I got a quick question for you. So you're gonna hire 2 full-time career firefighters. Is there any training that would be required that any of your volunteers don't already have? Would they have to go to the Washington State Fire Academy? Or is their training as a volunteer and all of their certifications therein, would that qualify them to just hit the ground running?
We need these personnel to hit the ground running, as we've done with any of the other hiring processes that we've done. It's basically my recommendation to treat it as a lateral position. They need their firefighter 1 certification, their Washington State EMT. They need to be an emergency vehicle operator.
So you're talking somebody from another department that's full-time as a lateral.
Any of our volunteers
That have those
that are
certs.
off probation have the same certifications.
That's what I wanted to hear, because it's not that way in law enforcement. It's a whole different thing. So that's even better. That's even better.
I think Connie had-
Councilmember Bender.
I think kind of answered my question, but my biggest question is, you're only asking for 1 more person, right? Are you just trying to be nice, or do you really need that extra person now?
We were nice at budget.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, do you need 2 rather than just 1? I mean, if we're gonna do it,
Yeah,
your department and the police department are one of the most
Yeah.
important departments. I mean, yeah, okay, we're all here, but
We
Without
have
them-
we have 1 paid firefighter now.
okay,
We need a total of 3 working shift work to make it work, but you do bring up a good point that everybody's entitled to paid time off. There's vacations. When you work a 24-hour shift schedule, there is Kelly days, as we refer to them, which come every 28 days roughly to keep your total hours worked to an acceptable limit.
So I'd rather see you say, hey, we need 2 or 3 people, and that's gonna hold us for a while, rather than one now, and 6 months from now.
Sure.
Councilmember Green.
We'll take 2 more for a total of,
You
wanna
want
talk to kind of piggyback on that, it was supposed to be 6 for 6,500 people, and we have 1 for 5,500 people now. Was that a proportionate number?
I think they were
What's
including the
goal there?
chief,
Including
the chief officers
Okay.
there. So
Okay.
it's not counting our recruitment and
I
retention
see.
position.
Okay.
So
It wasn't one fire.
today we're at 3 total. You know, this request would put us at 5, so. You know, it would certainly make life easier and keep overtime costs down to have a total of 4 paid firefighters.
Mhm.
Can it be done with a total of 3? Absolutely. And we can figure out how to staff it with part-timers. But I mean, it's ultimately up to.
2 more would-
So you need 2 more, is what you want. Cause as somebody who has a kid who's had to call, the 8 to 15 minute is not okay,
No.
for me, like, you know what I mean? Like, we value you guys when we have to call you guys, so. And we just live right in town, we're not far away from the fire stations.
Now, I'm also gonna be honest too, and that's, you know, what happens when we have 2 and 3 calls at once, which does happen. You're going to see some of those longer times then. We're trying to fix the 8 to 15 minutes when there's only 1 call happening at a time. And somebody's coming from home. Can't promise that you're never gonna see that because things sometimes get real busy real quick, and we do have to scramble. But that's no different than any fire department that has 2 or 3 or more calls happening all at once. Is you may now see delays.
If you think about it, I mean, I can't imagine not having anybody respond. I mean, all my time working, I mean, if you get the fire station here, and if that company's tied up on something else, they bring them from someplace else, right? I can't imagine that.
Unfortunately, we do have that excellent relationship with Enumclaw and with East Pierce. We're going into those jurisdictions, East Pierce daily. We respond to Enumclaw, not uncommon, a few times a week because they're busy. So we have that relationship with them.
Yeah, but like Councilmember Burbank said, and what I started off saying, people expect, this is what they've gotten. This is what they want. This is what they're gonna get by any means necessary, what we have to do here I love this impact fee thing. You want to build here, guess what? You're gonna pay for the services that you're getting. You're gonna pay, you're gonna pony up. You want to build here, you want to have this, you want to have that, guess what? You're gonna help pay for the services that you get. Not just traffic, not just that, you're gonna pay for this stuff. It's a no-brainer. First and foremost, the number 1 priority of government is public safety. We took care of the police department a few years ago to stop the people leaving the revolving door. And we can fix this. If we don't have public safety, we have nothing else.
I mean, they've been called to my house twice for my husband. And they were there under 5 minutes. But I felt sorry for him because they got stuck at the hospital for close to 3 hours before they were finally being able to get out of there. It was just, Good Sam's emergency isn't very good. But it took them a while to get out of there, but they were professional, they were great, they were, I can't say enough for the fire department. If we didn't have them in town, I don't know what it would have happened.
Came to my house for me. It was important to me, very important that day. It was a bad day.
I've seen them in action, both on a aid call, a medic call, and the other things they do in this community. And it's invaluable. Invaluable. So we're gonna get a resolution coming forward.
So for this year, we do have money to fund one additional firefighter because of the GEMT dollars, which is the Medicaid reimbursements. Moving into the biennium for next year, so 2025, 2026, for one additional firefighter, we're looking at needing $75,000 per year out of the cumulative reserve, assuming that the EMS levy passes and we continue to receive the GEMT at the current rate that we did this year. So with that, it would be $150,000 that would be approved via resolution by the council at the time of the biennial budget approval. Immediately, you'll receive a budget amendment in authorizing us to hire one additional firefighter for a total estimated cost of $125,000. And that's the cost for one. We do have one that was budgeted already for 2024. That position is still vacant and we are in the process of recruiting. So we would add this as a second position as part of that recruitment effort.
So the 25-27 biennial,
25-26.
25-26
Yeah.
would be adding the third.
No, we would propose doing that this year, but we have money because we had more money come in than we estimated for GEMT. That makes up the difference. So we do not need to tap into the cumulative reserve to fund it for this year, but we will for the next biennium. We won't be able to absorb it with one-time dollars out of the general fund. And the EMS revenue won't be able to cover that additional position. So we'll be looking at needing a supermajority in order to withdraw from the cumulative reserve.
Which if we need two now, you've got one covered. And then how long before the second one would be covered? If
We would
didn't-
need a property tax levy lid lift likely, or a B&O tax or some other type of revenue source. Keep in mind, though, that we are exploring other options. So if we have the impact fee come through, we could free up the dollars that we currently collect from the DSHS contract, which is about 90,000.
9,000 a month.
Yeah, so which would cover a portion of another person. So there's enough moving parts here that we might be able to absorb that one additional. But very likely we would continue to need to pull from the cumulative reserve until we are able to increase revenue.
Well, would that be this year or? What I guess I'm saying, because you say, what, in a year, 2 years, we could pull another person, right? But if we pulled them now, we could cover them for a year.
If we started so if we wanted to add, we already have one budgeted for this year,
Yeah.
that's vacant. The request right now is to add one additional, so for a total of 2 vacancies. If you wanted to add a third vacancy to now, so as part of that resolution, we would need to pull from the cumulative reserve this year, as well as add $125,000 estimated per year as part of that withdrawal for the biennial budget approval.
So the money's there.
Councilmember Sal.
So you're saying every year moving forward, it's not just a one-time pull.
Right.
Next two, it should be every year, even with the EMS levy until we can fund it.
Yes, and we have discussed already as part of our budget forecasting, and we will continue that conversation this year and as part of the biennial budget, the need to increase revenue, options to increase revenue. And the general idea has been that we would be pursuing a property tax levy lid lift request as soon as 2026. So that revenue would be made available in 2027. I have a spreadsheet on my computer I'm happy to share with anyone that really demonstrates how little property tax revenue we do collect, especially for the services we provide with fire, compared to our other agencies in Pierce County and other towns in Pierce County that I think would speak volumes and help share that story for us to pursue something in a couple of years. But this year, step one would be the EMS levy. But again, that will not fund, it funds one, which we've already budgeted for. It will not fund this second request, which is why we will need to pull from the cumulative reserve.
So everything I've heard tonight is there's nothing but unanimous support for adding a second for a total of 2 additional in addition to what we currently have. Discussion for a third. And so while there's unanimous support, we got to figure out how to pay for it because we're up against the wall. We have been for a couple of years and we've got many hard decisions, especially council members that are going to be here for the next 4 years and those that may be reelected. There's some hard decisions that are going to have to be made, not just for fire, but for the city and as a whole. So the cumulative reserve to get into that is super majority, which obviously should no one change their opinion, which I don't see that happening. We have that on the table as an option, but it is getting into the savings account that isn't being replenished. So just so everybody's clear.
Well, wouldn't it just be the interest off of it? Rather than,
No,
It
and
would be more than.
it would be more than the interest and it would, interest also varies, right? Depending
Right.
on what the market's doing. But we have also, this last year, for example, we did allocate the interest towards the general fund. So from a bottom line perspective, unless we are able to increase revenue by some means, tax basis, economic development, ambulance transports, there's lots of options that we're exploring and explored last year and will continue to explore this year as we move into the biennium. There is a very good chance that we will need to pull from the cumulative reserve and decrease that $5 million.
which myself, that's what it's for.
Yeah, because can you remind me, what is our cumulative reserve considered healthy?
Very high. It's
Very
very
high.
healthy,
That,
very
like-
healthy. Mhm. Yep. Financial policies were ones that we had looked at. And when we were talking about the city hall, they ranged from 5 to 20%
Mhm.
of their general fund being in a reserve account. And ours is more than that. 5 million, we have 7 point, what's our general fund operating? Yeah, just under 8 million.
Beads across.
'Cause
8 million is an
okay.
annual, it would be our annual general fund operating budget. So not quite 100%,
Mhm.
but close. I mean, you're at 80%.
2/3.
Yeah, 2/3
Okay.
is in reserve, which is significantly higher than what best practices would be. for
Because
financial
going along with
policies.
what Councilmember Bender said, that's what it's for. I mean, I know being the treasurer for our union, we're spending down because our reserve is so high.
Yep.
We're spending, because that's what's full. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously we need to find ways to fund it in the future, but that's
Mhm.
what it's.
Yeah, in a
for.
perfect world, we're bringing in 68%. Yeah. So in a perfect world, we are able to deposit into the reserve on an annual basis. That has not happened for at least the last 2 years. But I think even prior to that, we have not been depositing into the cumulative reserve
Okay.
because it's been at over 60% of our total general
Okay.
fund
All
in
right.
our savings account. So it's very healthy.
Okay.
I just have one last question for Chief Scogan. When this is adopted, what is your timeline? I know you got to advertise and create a civil service list.
Well, it's an immediate need. We need to make sure that things are done correctly. My personal goal and the goal for the department would be by June 1st. I think that's realistic.
That's very ambitious and that's, if you think it's realistic, that's great. Anybody else on this topic? Thank you, Chief. Oh,
Has he got any?
does Councilmember Anderson have anything?
Heard. So we haven't heard a peep. I don't know. Okay. She'll make her opinion known, I'm sure.
She chatted with me earlier, so I don't have any.
Okay.
Okay, so seeing nothing else on this, we'll move on to taxes, rates and fees update.
So this is a quick update. The one thing that it does not include is the other memo from Chief Scogan, which was for. Right, I think this is paper. Where's that?
EMT.
$95 director.
$95.
Yeah,
per hour.
$95 per hour. So that would be an additional adjustment that we'll bring forward as part of the resolution for you next week. What we did, if you flip through this quickly, starting on a page 11. We had said that the GFC charges, we just didn't have the data for when we amended the fee schedule. And so this is common that typically we don't actually adopt our fee schedule until after the first of the year. We did it earlier this year because we were making so many additions and changes to the development services section and just general cleanup that we wanted it to align with the budget projections. And so we made all the changes effective Jan 1. there were some things that we missed, some things that didn't come over that should have. And so that is what you see here for these additional changes, as well as those GFC rates, which are on page 14, which we didn't have until just recently. So you see some cleanup, areas that we had originally said would be based off of staff time that we were able to come up with more of a flat fee for, which is more transparent for individuals as they apply for permits and a lot easier for us to be able to administer. We took some areas that had been codified that should have been taken over in the first rendition, specifically traffic impact fees on page 17, and put them here. You will see an amendment later on via an ordinance to take those out of the code. They belong here in the fee schedule where they can be adjusted and reviewed annually. We shouldn't necessarily be adjusting ordinances annually to update fees in our municipal code. That should be where our very stable regulations live, not things subject to change like fees are. But other than that, I think the remainder of this document is unchanged. So those are the updates, and we will be bringing this forward via a resolution on the 13th. Any questions?
Questions, comments on rates and fees? We shall move on to pros plan.
And for this, we have Director Snodgrass. Anywhere.
I have a few slides tonight. Good evening, you guys. I want to start off just by thanking you guys for the time. You guys have looked over this, I feel like, a lot over the last 6 months. And I appreciate it. We have also taken this to a number of our partnering agencies, including Trails Coalitions. The Chamber has seen a draft. BDA has seen a draft, Historical Society, and we've really reached out and got impact or feedback, and we've implemented some of that into this. You pressed play. You can go to the second slide. Oh, we're good. Intention and use in the plan. I just want to remind everyone that the plan is just a training document. It helps us provide direction. If you look at our parks, you'll notice that over time, there hasn't been kind of a vision for all the spaces, and we got a grant, so let's plop this here, or let's plop this here because somebody wants to donate it. This document helps us bring a larger vision so that as we grow as a city, we can implement an interwoven park that really tells the story of Buckley and shows off our pride in our town and doesn't just piece together pet projects as we go, but laces them together into a nice park system. This document is to meet grant requirements for large money grants. You know, it is unfortunate that this type of document and time is taken to be able to apply for some state grants. But if we want to go after big dollars in the current function of our system, this document is needed. And then again, just to reiterate, this document, anything in this would come to you guys, come to commissions, be vetted, and at your direction through the budget process before we even got started. So while this is a dreaming document, it's not tomorrow. I'm not going to start building a spray park and then come to you and ask it for a line item. It would be at your guys' direction. Go ahead, Jess. Since your last review, we have updated some of the conceptual diagrams and graphics. You'll see some more detail that was given as feedback from you guys and from some of the commissions and different committees we brought it to. We have also implemented more emphasis on how we can do some impacts to business growth along the trail in some of our properties that the city owns, including an area we could put food trucks and lower cost city things that could cultivate some income coming in and economic elements. Our goals are now clear to find and read. That was some feedback we got. We reviewed and fixed grammar errors. There's a few more coming in before we run this to you. So if you see any more before next week, please let me know. We keep finding more and more. And we provided more detail on the data collection and how that process worked. And then we also restructured the capital improvements list to provide actual funding resources that could be used for those instead of giving estimate numbers that could change so drastically over the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. We instead identified state programs and national programs that could help us fund these as a city, which is the path most likely Buckley would take, is going after those external dollars. Okay. Our next steps are final feedback from you guys tonight on anything you would like changed before this is brought to you next week for final adoption. This is required to be adopted before March 1st by RCO to be eligible for spring grants. We do have a lofty goal of going after large figured amounts this spring for Miller Park development, which is one of your guys' priorities. Just fact, we can't build that park without external money. So this document helps us get on the right path and timeline to get there. And then after that, we'll just keep rolling at your guys's, wherever you want to go. Are there any questions?
I think it was very nice.
Thank you.
Said by March.
Yeah,
March 1.
the second you guys adopt it, the next day we will be submitting it to RCO for their stamp of approval, but it has to be in by March 1.
Because the document, if something changes or we decide to go a different route, you can always update it, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys could say, oh no, we've had this underscoring need and the whole community wants a indoor pool. Okay, we update the plan and we go that way. Sandy would like the indoor pool. I never want to work in a community that puts in an indoor pool. So just so you know. Is there any other questions?
Other comments or
you.
questions?
No, thank you guys for the time and to look over this document a bunch of times too. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Moving on to council comments, we'll go around the table. Very impressed with the way we formed our committees and those that stepped up. That's done. We can move on. Anything else? Nobody has anything to say. Well, given that, I'll get you out of here, go home to your families. It's 7:13 PM on February 6th. This is the adjournment of the Buckley City Council study session.